Okay, so now you've already completed the notes over exponential graphs and their attributes. So let's do some practice problems. So you guys are going to solve the problems on your own, and then I'm going to give you the answer. Okay, let's see if you got the answer right to number 1. So this is going to be number 1. It says, is it a growth or a decay? So looking at the graph, remember we read it from left to right, just like we read a book. We have to see if the graph is going up or going down. Well, if we follow it from here, we know that it's going down. So since it's going down, this is going to be a decay. Okay, then it says, what is the y-intercept, the starting value? So remember, the y-intercept is where it crosses the y-axis. So if we look right here, it looks like the starting value is at 1. Notice they put at that 1 right there. So I know it looks like it's at 0, but they told us that it's at 1. So the y-intercept is 1 particle. So this is 1 particle. Okay. Then it says, what is the asymptote? Remember in Algebra 1, the asymptote is always y equals 0. Okay? Then it says, after 10,000 years, what is the particle ratio? So remember, right here at the bottom, it says years. So we're going to find 10,000, and then we're going to go up to see what the particle ratio is. So it looks like the particle ratio is a little above. Well, actually, hang on. I think I drew that line wrong. No, I did it right. Okay, it's a little above 1/4. But for the sake of this assignment, if you put between 1/4 and 1/3, you're fine. So if you put 1/4 as your particle ratio, then you are good. Particle ratio. When the particle ratio is 1/8, how many years have passed? When the particle ratio is 1/8, so it's 1/8 right here, so how many years have passed? So it's anywhere between 15,000 and 20,000 years. So I'm going to say about 17,000 years. So if you are anywhere close to this, then you are correct. 17,000 years. Okay, now go ahead and try number 2, so the one next to it, and then we'll go over the answers when you're done. Okay, so the answers to number 2. So first it says, is it a growth or a decay? So remember, if we read it from left to right, we notice this graph is going up. So since it's going up, this is going to be a growth. Next it says, what is the y-intercept? So the y-intercept, or the starting value, is where it crosses the y-axis. If I was to continue this graph all the way to the end, I would notice that it would start at 0. So our population size is 0. So a 0 population. Then it says, what is the asymptote? So remember, in Algebra 1, the asymptote is always y equals 0. Because if we look at that blue line, it gets really close to the x-axis where y is equal to 0, but it never crosses over it. So that's why y equals 0 is the asymptote. Okay. Next question. After the 9th generation, how many people are there? So let's find 9. So the tick marks are in between each one. So 9 is right here. So if we go all the way up, it looks like it crosses this point, and this point is in between here. So about 25,000 people. So 25,000, I'm just write population because we don't know if it's talking about people or animals. So I just put population. So from the first generation, it was at 0, and now at the 9th generation, it's 25,000. So the next question says, about how many generations will it take to get 60,000 in our population? So 60,000 is all the way up here. So about how many generations will it take? So this is going to be kind of like a little guess here. How would you think this would increase? So it looks like it would get to about, let's say, 10.5 generations. So about 10.5 generations. So if you put 10 generations or if you put 11 generations, then that is correct. Okay. So now you're working on number 3. This one's number 3. Okay, let's go over the answers to number 3. First it says, is it a growth or a decay? So remember, we look from left to right and we notice that this graph is going up. So since it's going up, we know it's a growth. Next it says, what is the y-intercept? So the y-intercept is where it crosses the y-axis, and we notice it crosses right here at 0. 0, again, we're talking about population side, so 0 population. Then it says, what is the asymptote? Remember in Algebra 1, the asymptote is always y equals 0. Then it says, after 5 generations, how many people are in the population? So 5 generations right here. So it looks like about halfway between 0 and 500. So about 250 people. So after 5 generations, there's 250 people. Now it says, how many generations did it take for the population to be 3,500? So if we look over here at 3,500 and we draw it all the way over to where the generations are, it looks like it took about 10 generations to get 3,500 people. Okay, now look at the last example, number 4. So it says, the first question says, is it a growth or a decay? So again, if we look from left to right, just like we read a book, we notice that this graph is going down. So since it's going down, it is a decay. What is the y-intercept, our starting point? Remember, the y-intercept is where it crosses the y-axis. It crosses the y-axis right here at 100. 100 grams. Okay. And then it says, what is the asymptote? Remember, the asymptote is always y equals 0. Okay. And then it says, at the 50-year mark, how much radioactive material decayed? So at the 50-year mark, which is right here, we see that about there is now